Well, I guess now is as good a time as any to go ahead and get things started. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. My name is Andy, and we're going to have a talk today about how to talk to one another using Microsoft Teams. Just a little bit of introduction. Andy Huneycutt. I'm out of Charlotte, North Carolina, U.S. Work for a couple of different companies. I own my own company, Upskill Tech, training, contract work, consultant. I'm also a senior trainer with ASPE training, now C Prime Learning. Been with them since 2011. I do all things SharePoint, Office 365, Project Server, and Microsoft Teams. So I wear a whole lot of hats. Been doing Teams now for quite a few years, since it was kind of pre-release. Really excited when that got released, and I use Teams every single day. I'm a big foodie. I'm a big baseball fan. Kind of sad I can't do any of that right now. I can foodie, but I got to make it myself. So I'm turning into a home chef a little bit more. Feel free to connect with me through Twitter and LinkedIn. On Twitter, it's really easy to find at Andy Huneycutt, and then on LinkedIn, I'm William. Legal name is William. So you'll find me on LinkedIn. Same profile picture, same Andy, coming to you virtually here. Introductions out of the way. Just want to introduce this session. This session is about chat, conversation, and post. I'm just trying to talk to someone. How do I effectively communicate with other people in Microsoft Teams? A lot of users, especially over the last few months, are new to the system. They're new to working with Teams, and they're overwhelmed. They don't understand the nuances of effectively communicating with one another, whether it's a private one-on-one or group chat, or whether it's an open public post or conversation that's out there. So I spend a lot of my time in my day job actually working with people, helping them understand the nuances of communicating in Teams. It seems pretty straightforward, but there's some best practices and some tips and tricks that can really help you to be more effective. And that's what I wanted to kind of talk about in this particular presentation today. So with that, it seems pretty straightforward, right? You've got a chat. Chat's one-to-one or one-to-many. Most users don't understand, though, how to effectively use the chat and all the different tools that they have there. They also don't understand the differences between posting in a channel and what that means for actually working and communicating with an entire team. The two interfaces, post and chat, they share a lot of similarities, but they're also vastly different in how they're going to impact the different audiences. So really just want to take this time to break down some of what you can do in between the two, but also to talk a little bit about like best practices, etiquette, and how that's going to impact those users. So core communication. Just want to define this at the high level as we're kind of starting this conversation off. Chat, one-on-one. It's private. It's between you and that person. This is very similar to like a text message. Group chat, that's one-to-many. So you might have a few people inside of a chat, but that's also private. This is outside the context of a larger channel. Again, this would be very similar to like a text message or perhaps an email thread where you've tagged in a couple of different people. Posting in a channel, on the other hand, is posting in a channel that's part of a team or a private channel that has a membership service on it, meaning anybody who is a member of that team or anybody who's a member of that private channel can see that entire communication. Now, one of the interesting things about the difference between that chat and the channel conversation is that the channel conversation lives on as the team evolves. As people come and go, that channel conversation is going to stay there and be persistent through the history of that channel, as long as that channel is still active and available. Chat, on the other hand, is tied to a user account. And in some cases, users leave the organization, that chat might be deleted, or there might be some retention tools in place which might delete that chat history, and it might be lost. So how we chat and how we post is going to have a big impact on how this information lives on within the organization, even after people change roles or leave and new people are onboarded into the organization. So just a brief comparison between the two. With chat, private, one-to-one or one-to-many. Posts, on the other hand, can be public or private. whether you're using a private channel or not. With Post, if you're a member of the team, everything inside of those channels is open to everybody that's a member of the team. Again, as people come and go, that those posts that you've made previously are still going to be available there. The private posts, part of private channels, are only available to people that are part of that private channel. But again, as people come and go and are added and removed from the private channel, that conversation will live on. Chat, though, very much tied to those user accounts. So with chat, you are going to receive notifications. So you'll see the little chat icon light up, and it'll tell you the number of notifications that you're going to have there. In Post, it's going to be a little bit more important to use things like @ mentions, especially when you're trying to draw attention to things. You're also going to see channels highlighted in bold, and then some activity feeds will light up for that. When we're working in chat, the upper limit currently is set to 100, but Microsoft announced 2 weeks ago they're going to up that to 250 users in a private chat. That being said, in those chats, you do lose some features when you get above, I believe it's 20 or 30 users. So some features that you might have available in a small group chat are not going to be available inside of a large group chat. Switching gears over to Post and channels, current limit 5,000 people per team. That's actually going to be upped to 10,000. Again, Microsoft announced that just a couple weeks ago. So you're going to be able to double the number of people inside of a team moving forward. That's going to work for much larger teams, but studies have shown that smaller teams tend to be a little bit more effective. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. With chat, we do have a history, but it can be conditional. So if I'm chatting with you one-on-one or one-to-many, I have the ability to tie people into the conversation and limit what you can see from our previous conversation. And additionally, we're using some of the security and compliance features in Office 365. We can put like a retention schedule on the chat, and after N number of days, we can delete that chat history for legal or compliance reasons. On the other side, working with posts and channels, that chat or that conversation that we're having tends to be more persistent. Unless we go in and delete the message, it's there basically for the duration of the channel, the duration of the team. It's persistent and it's fully searchable, so we can go back and you can use this to see what conversation happened, when decisions were made along the way. Additionally, users can onboard and they can see that history of that conversation very, very quickly. And both of these are going to support the ability to take a chat or a conversation and turn it into an audio, a video, or a screen sharing call. It's built right in. Additionally, the ability to continue to communicate with one another will pass over when we're working in a document together. So like, or if I'm working in a document in Teams, editing like an Office document, I can pull up my conversation and I can continue to work right from there. It'll also work in meetings. So there is pre-meeting conversation, there's during meeting conversation, and then there's post-meeting conversation. Those are actually filed away in the chat area. So I might launch a meeting, schedule a meeting, and a lot of that's going to be filed away over in the chat area. So that's just kind of high level. Now, here's something that I found really, really interesting. And I like sharing this as part of presentations. Did you know that when users start working with Microsoft Teams, chat is the most used function? Chat is used between 70 and 95% of users when they start working and getting inside of Microsoft Teams. So from a trainer perspective, one of the things that I try to emphasize is when you're getting users into the Teams client and you're starting to train users on Teams, start with chat, because this is going to be the thing that is the easiest for them to understand, because they do this already, whether it's text messaging, whether it's other applications. They've used chat in Skype previously, and then there's other tools that they've probably chatted on as well. That's the low-hanging fruit, and that's going to be the easiest adoption barrier for us to get over. Use that chat interface first. So when we do a training class, that's the first thing we start off with. We start chatting one-on-one and one-to-many. So the studies have also shown that the high percentage of chat adoption is mainly attributed to tools like text messaging and Skype, but also email. Users are coming into this Teams world and they've been living in Outlook. They've been living in replies and reply alls and threaded conversations in Outlook. And those are not easy to manage. So getting users to understand how to work with chat is something that's easily approachable, because we can compare with what they've already done using tools like email or Skype. Chat activity is on average 13 times higher than what's happening inside of a team or a channel. There's a couple of reasons behind that. Chat is something familiar. It's associated with something that they've used, but it's also labeled as private. And that makes users a little bit more comfortable. Having a post and an open conversation in a channel is really intimidating to a lot of users, especially a lot of end users. This is a new technology. They don't want to break anything. They don't want to say anything that might be incorrect. They don't want to be wrong. So those kinds of barriers are more prevalent in a team where anybody can have a conversation, where anybody can post and anybody can reply. In a chat, those barriers are not as prevalent. It's one-to-one or one-to-many. It's private. It's something that they feel like they have a little bit more control over. So the activity in private chat is significantly higher than what you see in open channels. A lot of users look at channels as like something that's ongoing, that's going to live on indefinitely. Other people are going to see it, and so there are those barriers that are faced there. So there's a Swoop Analytics out of Australia. They did a really good Teams breakdown where they went through. It's about a 150-page report on usage reports. That's where some of these numbers actually came from. But there were specific case studies from a number of partners that they worked with during the course of the study. And the study was about 12 weeks long. So really interesting nuggets inside of there. And one that really stood out to me was the quote that I've got here on the slide. Users start chatting a little bit. They get an invite to a team. Somebody uploads a file, and then a week later, they get a meeting invite, and before they know it, they have transitioned into teams with very little training. I can vouch that for the 3 or 4 years that I've been doing Teams training, this is pretty much the exact use case that happens for most organizations. Somebody gets that little chat option, they reply in the web browser, and then they're like, oh, I can share a file. They see the file tab right up there at the top. And then they're like, well, let me make a call and do audio and video. And then next thing you know, they're just natively using it, and they don't require a whole lot of training. But the training comes after the fact. That's when you really want to understand all the knobs and switches and the capabilities of Teams. So this is kind of a roadmap to get those users started. Get them into chat first. Get them to share and access a file. Get them to express themselves, and then start a meeting, and that will lower a lot of that adoption curve that we're faced with. So let's start off. We're going to talk a little bit about chat, private chat versus having conversations in channels. So this is the user interface. This is not the most recent user interface. This is the Hero generic version from a couple of Microsoft materials. But this does represent private chat. So if you look over here, you've got your private chat highlighted on the left-hand navigation. You've got a list of all of the recent chats that you've got going on. You've got the ability to pin a few of them to the top. And then when you select a chat, you're going to be able to go in and have a conversation, work with files. And now you can even see the org chart. Where it's highlighted in the center of the screen, it says conversation. That now actually says chat. And it's actually connected up to the top in the UI just a little bit. Now, I'm showing this for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is the chat interface. Notice chat highlighted on the left. Icon tells me that there are notifications there. Main chat listing, anything highlighted in bold is new or unread. And then this is also highlighting the two different interfaces. You can take chat with you across your web, your desktop, or your mobile device. Users are a little concerned about mobile. I try to address that early on in training, and one of the things that's really helpful in mobile is quiet hours. I can set quiet hours on the mobile device so I can minimize interruptions and keep that balance between work and private life. So if I'm using the mobile device, I'm going to turn on quiet hours. Those are hours and days when I'm going to be unavailable. And using my activity feed, when I go back into the Teams client, I'll be able to see anything that happened, any notifications while I was away. So that's going to be a big deal, getting those quiet hours and keeping that work-life balance. Now, I'm going to be able to chat in both locations. I can take it with me, and being a trainer and working with multiple tenants, I use this all the time. Now, breaking it down, one-to-one or one-to-many. One-to-one is private between me and a colleague that I want to communicate with. Group chat, on the other hand, that's a small group. So again, limit right now up to 100. but most of the time group chats are more effective with smaller numbers, 5, 10 people, something like that. With group chats, though, we will be able to tie in additional people kind of as we need. So starting a chat is pretty straightforward. You get this nice little pen and pad icon. It's right up to the left of the search box, right up in the top of the chat of the Teams interface. I kind of wish it would say, it would be a little bit bigger, a little bit more prominent. I have to kind of point this out to users. So that's kind of a nuance. So look for the little pen and pad, kind of highlighting it here in the middle of the screen. I couldn't find a good high-res copy of this. Outside of that, when you start a one-on-one chat, you just start typing in names. So you go to the to field, you start typing in names. It's going to look for somebody internal to the organization, and then you can start chatting across the tenant. When you're done, hit the paper airplane in the bottom. You've just sent your message. Now, if you're sending a group chat, you can enter in multiple names, and there's a little drop-down arrow on the side. Select that, and you can actually rename the group as you're getting ready to create the group chat and start communicating with users. Same editor, same options are going to be available. Hit your paper airplane, send the item, and then you're off and running. Current limits are 100, but again, Microsoft's going to update up that limit to 250 people in a private chat here in the next little while. That was just announced. Again, though, I find more effectiveness in small group chats. You'll also find that a lot of your meetings that you schedule are going to use the chat interface. So the more people you have in a meeting, the more people that are going to be part of that private chat and actually communicating with one another, kind of similar to how we're working here today. But go ahead and enter in the names of the people that you want. Name the groups ahead of time. That's just really helpful. It kind of gives an indication of what we're going to talk about, but the groups can be renamed after the fact if you need to. Formatting. Formatting is really fun inside of Microsoft Teams. First and foremost, the default box just says type a message. Go in, start typing a message. It supports copy, cut, and paste, and it works with images, which is awesome. If you need more formatting options, open the formatter down at the bottom. It's the little A with the paintbrush over it. Open that up. You get things like bold, italics, underlines, strike throughs. You get the ability to work with formatting colors and backgrounds and fonts and so forth. Pro tip, when you copy and paste, use the option to clear the text formatting. You'll find that when you copy and paste, especially from like web pages, the text is usually really large in size. It's like 15-point font or higher. Clear the formatting. When you copy and paste, clear the formatting. Try to keep things within kind of the same size within that. It's just a little bit more pleasing to the eye to work with. But copy and paste does support images as well, so you can put images and have text wrap around it, which is actually really cool. I'm a big fan of that. It drives me crazy when I move from Teams back to PowerPoint and I copy and paste something and there's an image in it and PowerPoint just doesn't like it at all. I wish that what the Teams team did here would happen in PowerPoint for creating presentations. But you can copy and paste inside of here, and then you have other additional formatting options, like you can highlight quotes if you need to. You can drop in hyperlinks, clean display name, mask a URL. And then you've got options to drop in code snippets as well. And the code snippet's really cool because you can say at the top what coding language you're referring to. So you can paste in some JSON and select JSON from the drop down and say, I'm actually working with JSON inside of here. Now, as a best practice, use links. Mask those URLs. Some of them are really long, really nasty. So if you're going to paste a link, use the link option. Give it a clean display name, clean URL, clean up that message a little bit. That's going to make things easier to read for users. A lot of times, if you paste in a big, long URL, users are going to miss important notifications or important information above or below that because they're just concentrating on the URL. So that gives a clean display. Use that that linking option built in there. Now, you're not limited to just text and formatting. A couple other things that are going to be really helpful is acknowledgement and reacting. One of the things users are going to want to do right away is they're going to see a message and they're going to want to say, okay, thank you, or they're going to want to reply in some manner to acknowledge, hey, I got this. Think about those reply all email chains that we get where somebody's like, okay, and they reply all and everybody gets it. So rather than using a reply to acknowledge that I got something, use your reactions. Top right-hand corner, click on a reaction, give it a thumbs up, give it a laugh, give it a wow. And that just tells the person, hey, got it, we're good to go. And I don't have to send a message back, and I don't have to work with that. So use those reactions to acknowledge that you've actually seen the message and to be able to interact. So you just hover over the top right-hand corner, you get those options. You also get a drop-down menu, and that's also really helpful. One of the things that I find super helpful for me is marking as unread and saving messages. I save messages that are important that I want to get back to later. The more you use chat, the more messages you're going to have, the more threading you're going to have. There are things like a link to an item. There are things like an important decision was made. Save that message, and you can go to your user icon in the corner, and you see saved messages. And it's all in one place. It takes you right to the conversation. Teams does all the work for you. So something's important, save it for later. The other thing that I do is mark as unread. I kind of use this as an informal task list to follow up on something later. When you mark an item as unread, you've read the message, but it keeps the message kind of notified that you need to go back and actually review it. It's not the best method for flagging items for follow-up, but it does keep the indicator in the chat icon on the side nav there. It keeps it highlighted in red and tells me, okay, you've got something that you need to see. And then I look at my conversation, I see it's in bold, and I know I need to go back and review that. And it just drives me crazy seeing that little red icon over there. I feel like I'm missing out on something. I suffer from FOMO, fear of missing out. So seeing that little red icon and then going back to that message, okay, I need to follow up on this. So marking it as unread is something that I use to kind of create that informal task list to go back and actually look at that a little bit later. Another thing, and this is really fun in a training environment, is expressing yourself. This is one of the areas where users really start to push the buttons and start to play around with teams. Working inside of here, I'm going to be able to do emojis. They're animated. I'm going to be able to send in animated GIFs, or I'm going to be able to create a meme or add a sticker to the conversation. Now, when you first start working in here, it's fun. Everybody's doing this. You're replying. Everybody's having a whole bunch of memes. But after a while, the fun kind of goes away, and you go back to the conversations. Admins, we have, and moderators and owners of the team, we have the ability to turn on or off the ability to work with GIFs and memes, and we can even set the level of moderation, whether it's safe for work or not safe for work. Keep it safe for work, but I do encourage you, let your users express themselves. Let them use these tools, because these are different ways to interact with one another. A picture says 1,000 words. I guess a GIF, an animated GIF, says like 1,000,000. Sometimes reacting like that can express a little bit more than typing something out. It gives the user freedom of expression. That drives user adoption. It gets them working in the client. So any chat or conversation that I'm a part of, we're going to be expressing ourselves in different ways. In the beginning, it'll be pretty frequent with a lot of this, but as users get more into the Teams client, as users work with it more, they'll start to focus more on text and content and information, and you'll see fewer GIFs and stickers, but it's still an option to be able to communicate with one another. So a couple of things that best practice wise, some of this is from Microsoft, some of this is just from experience. So a couple of things that you should be aware of and do, and we'll see this on the next couple of slides as well. Name your group chats. I'm going to show you that in just a second, but name the group chat. That gives a meaningful name to the chat. It's quick for you to identify in the interface and get back to that conversation. If you find yourself frequently communicating with someone, pin it to the top. Really easy. Just click on the little menu next to the name of the chat, pin it to the top. You can drag and drop to reorder those in whatever priority you want. Pin those items up there. Share files. Share files inside of there, but just know when you do, those files are being shared in your OneDrive for Business account. But share files inside of there to collaborate. And then when you go to share and add in new people in the group, you can limit the chat history. So we'll see that in just a second. So naming the group chat happens from a drop down. When you create the name of the group chat, you can name it, but you can always go back after the fact and name it. Just look for the name of the chat. There's the pencil icon, and you can rename it. Anybody that's a member of the chat can rename it though, so kind of limit that. On the far right-hand side, you're going to see who's a member of that chat or who's a member of that conversation. That's where you can add in people. But as a user, if the conversation is no longer important to you, feel free to leave. You can always be re-added back into it and get back to the history. But if the chat is no longer valid, feel free to leave and exit that conversation. One of the places that you can do that's that top right-hand corner. When you start adding in people, so top right-hand corner, you'll see the list of people. You can add a person, start typing a name, drop them into the conversation. You have the option to include the history that you want to allow them to see. So if I've got a group chat, we've been working together for a few weeks and we need to bring somebody else into the conversation, we have the option to exclude the entire chat history. That'll start a new chat and go from there. You also have the option to include the history from n number of days. So we can say, well, for the last 3 days, include that conversation, bring them into this, bring this other person or people in to the conversation and let them communicate with us. Otherwise, you can include the entire chat history and anything that you said all along the way. So we do have those options for that group history. Take advantage of it. Another thing, when you're in that group chat, top right-hand corner, you can start a call or you can start a video share from there. So you can have calls right inside of that. That's the next step when you're getting people to onboard inside of here, is start chatting with one another and then just call. That's like an ad hoc meeting. Hey, let's go ahead face-to-face. Let's see everybody. We can continue our conversation because we have pre, during, and post call chat conversation actually happening, but use that call feature directly from there. Anybody who's a member of the chat will automatically be called inside of the Teams client. So make sure you take advantage of that. And then chat doesn't happen in just the left-hand navigation rail. It also happens from the search box at the top. I can be anywhere in Teams, and if I need to communicate with somebody, I can just go to the search box. I can mention the person, so just @ start typing their name, and I can chat with them from there. Or I can do /chat, enter in the name of the person, type in my message, hit send, and stay where I am in the Teams client. So I might be in my files area reviewing a file and say, I need to ask so-and-so about this particular thing. I can go right to the command search box at the top. I can send that chat message right from there, and I don't have to leave where I am inside of the Teams client. That's really helpful. Additionally, if you're doing banner notifications, you might see a little pop-up box in the corner. When somebody replies, you can reply back from that little pop-up box. You don't have to leave where you are, navigate to chat, and lose your place. So use that search and command bar to take advantage of that feature. So that's kind of the entry into these. I'll talk about notifications in a moment. A couple of things I want to address right away. This question comes up all the time, and I address it as soon as I can in training. Deleting private chats. As an end user, I want to be able to delete the whole conversation. Unfortunately, you can't do that right now. You can delete an individual message, but you can't delete the entire chat or conversation that you've had. Now, there's some admin tools that we can use to delete the private chats. There's some retention things for security and compliance that we can do, but right now we cannot delete an entire chat. However, as of January 23rd of this year, 2020, that is on the backlog in user voice, and that's something that Microsoft is actually exploring. The other thing, and this was just announced a couple of weeks ago, and I'm super excited about it, is the ability to pop out a chat into a separate window. So this was announced 2 weeks ago. This is a screenshot from the blog article where Microsoft announced it. This is coming. So I'm going to be able to pop this out into a separate window, which gives me the ability to maintain a couple of different chats while continuing to work in Teams and other places. Think of it as the evolution of that search command box. Just allows you to focus in on that conversation in a separate window. This has been requested for a while now. This screenshot shows you it's actually working. It's supposed to be released in here in the next little while. So really excited for that. All right, next up. So that's private chat. Now we're going to talk about post, conversations and channels, conversations that are available to the entire team. So chat, you have to be invited into the conversation. You have to be a member of the small group, or I have to communicate with you one-on-one. Posts, on the other hand, happen in channels. If you're a member of the team, you're a member of the channel, you can see the conversation. If it's a private channel, you have to be a member of the private channel, but you can see that conversation. So we're going down the left-hand navigation rail. We're looking for the Teams icon, and then that's going to show us all the different teams that we have. Now we'll see our teams, we'll see our channels, whether they are private or whether they're public. We'll see notifications, whether they're bold, whether there's the icon, the red icon indicating things that are happening. And then we'll go into the channel and we'll be able to work with the open post or conversation. The UI used to say conversations, now it says post, and it's actually kind of up at the top a little bit. But posts are open conversations available to anybody in the team. You'll see inside of here also in your mobile app, you'll see that as well. So breaking this down really high level, every team has one or more channels. There's always the general channel. That's usually really good for onboarding and welcome to the team and about us scenarios. And then you can create additional channels around different projects, business initiatives, and daily business activities. Every channel has a conversation or a post tab built into it, and that allows us to have consolidated conversations around different projects or initiatives, conversations around different business goals throughout the day. So those channels are going to drive those conversations that we're actually having. We can tie in additional files and content inside of there as needed. How you structure this is going to depend on how your team works. Every team works a little bit differently. But one of the things I do recommend, general channel, I don't like giving that a specific business purpose, tying the general channel to like a specific project. Create a new channel for that. I personally prefer using the general channel for onboarding, about us, and welcome to the team. It's a little bit, it's kind of an informal welcome to the team scenario. I do that onboarding guidance, provide some information, contact information. Hey, everybody say hey to the new person of the team and so forth. That's what I like using the general channel for. I create additional channels for those specific goals or initiatives, and then the conversation is built around that. Now, when you start working with the conversation here, it's going to be very similar to what you can do in your chats. You get the full formatter and you can work with it. But Post introduced a couple of new features that you don't get in your private chat. You can start a new conversation, or you can make an announcement. That's kind of a big, bold bulletin board. Here's something to pay attention to. With Post, we can also choose who can reply. Everyone can reply, or only moderators can reply. So we can shut the conversation down before it even starts. And we can post across multiple channels. So I can create a message in one channel and post it across multiple channels and across multiple teams if I need to. Kind of a all hands on deck bulletin. And one thing that you can also do is change the importance of your message. I can set the importance and give it an important designation. Now I'm going to bounce back to here. This is an important designation right here. There's also going to be an icon on the side, red exclamation point. That indicates that something is important inside of there. And there's one big thing between here in Post and in a private chat. You can mark both as important, but private chat also introduces something called urgent, where it notifies a user every 2 minutes for 20 minutes that they've gotten a notification. Urgent is exclusive to private chat. Important can be used in both. So important just gives that red icon, pay attention to this. Now, otherwise, working with files, emojis, GIFs, memes, all of that's going to be supported here. But the big thing is you get the ability to do announcements, control who can reply, and then post in multiple channels. So when you post here, you're posting to the entire team. This is everybody. This is what we need everybody to see. This lives on as the team evolves. So as people come and go, this lives on. But these are threaded conversations. So there's a little bit of etiquette as to how you need to reply effectively. Every post has a reply built into it. Use the reply to respond to that topic. Do not create a new conversation down at the bottom to reply to a previous topic. They're not connected. Use that reply button to reply to the topic. That's where the threaded conversation happens. So threaded conversations can be many different smaller conversations. Chat, that's like one big conversation that you're having with that person or that group. So use that reply option correctly. Hit reply to respond to a topic. Do not go down to the bottom and start a new conversation to reply to a topic. That leaves something called orphaned replies, orphaned topics. You don't know what thread that conversation is in response to. It's not easy to clean up. It's not fun to work with. And that's the biggest mistake people make in these channels, is that they don't use the reply correctly. I'm a little OCD. This one drives me crazy. So please use the reply to reply back to the topic to keep the thread together. All right, announcement. So when you send an announcement inside of here, you select announcement from the drop down. You get a big bold banner at the top. You can drop in a background image along with that. You can use your subheading to define what you're getting ready to talk to, and then you can create your announcement. You can also control who can respond to this. But this is a way to publish news announcements and updates to keep everybody in the team aware of what's happening. And because it's a big, bold visual, as you're scrolling through the history list of this conversation, you can draw attention to those items. You can cross-post in here. So this just shows what happens when you start posting in multiple channels. You're able to go and search for the additional channels that you want to tie this into, even across teams. Post in multiple channels, you'll see the channels you've selected. You can confirm before you actually send this out. So I can create a message one time and I can post that or in many different channels as I need to. Another thing that's really helpful, and this is to get users off of Outlook and to get them into Teams and stop all those reply all chains that we have, is that we can send email into a channel. Every channel actually has an email address associated with it. You can get that email address and you can use that to forward email into the channel. It creates a new post and then users can reply and they can work from there. So like I might receive an email my team needs, I can just forward it to the channel by the email address. And when you do this, you get the original message. You also get a file of the email. It stores that in the files area in the channel. And any attachments that are forwarded are also stored there as well. So you get all of that in one nice, neat little package. So I can forward email in and I can start breaking some of those email chains. Okay, here's the email. Now let's put it in Teams. Now we've got a thread, a post going along with it, reply here, and use this moving forward. And that's a really helpful way to work with this. Another thing that you can do is each message, you have the option in the top right-hand corner to send a summary via email. So you can take the message or the thread and you can send a summary via email, and you can email that out if you need to. But getting the email in is one of the ways that I transition a lot of users into Teams when they start working with channels. Another thing, when we're working with all these different threaded channels, there's different conversations happening. We need to draw attention to this at some point. You can use an at mention to do this. But an at mention is like a reply all, and it should be used sparingly and it should be used with a specific purpose. If I'm having a conversation and I need you to look at something and it's timely or sensitive, I'm going to at mention you to draw your attention to the channel, to draw your attention to the conversation, and to light up your activity feed. So with that, use at mention sparingly. You can at mention a person, you can at mention the channel, you can at mention the team. I do not at mention the team. I use things like announcements and so forth. They'll go into the interface, they'll see if there's something going on there. I don't at mention the team if I can help it. That's like a reply all thread where somebody messages the whole organization and now everybody's like acknowledging and replying. I don't like that. I don't really like at mentioning the channel as well. I at mention specific people only when I need to draw them into that conversation. I recommend you do the same thing. All right, couple last things. I know we're getting kind of close to the end of time. I want to make sure that I leave some time for Q&A and to get my colleague Matt all set up for success as well. So just last couple of things here. Notifications. Manage your notifications to trim down the noise so that you can effectively concentrate when you're in Teams. One of the first things users will experience when they start working with Teams is they're overwhelmed by the number of notifications. So the main thing that I recommend, use the activity feed. That shows me what is happening, where I've been mentioned, where people have replied, where important things have happened. But it also shows me what I've done. There's a drop down in there and I can see what I've done over Teams for the last few days. So use the activity feed as the main tool to track your activities and your communications. If you've been at mentioned, you'll get a notification around that. You'll get you'll see the red at sign and you'll see your name highlighted in red. And channels with new content are going to have or they're going to be in bold. Now, if I'm in a chat and it's really noisy and I'm trying to concentrate, go to the chat, select the menu, and then mute the conversation. You can mute or you can hide. If you hide the conversation, you're not leaving it. You're just minimizing the notifications from it. If you mute it, you're just turning off notifications. If you unhide, you can get the notifications back. You can turn this on and off. So if you're in a meeting, so if you join a meeting and you leave the meeting and Teams is blowing up, go to the meeting and mute notifications. So that's the first place to start. So mute those chats. If it's distracting to you, mute it. But also you can set your status to do not disturb, and you can minimize a lot of notifications that way. So mute a chat, mute the notifications if it's overwhelming. Turn off notifications for conversations. So if you're in a channel and it's public and there's a lot of noise happening, go to the specific thread, select the menu at the top, and turn off the notifications for that conversation. If it doesn't apply to you anymore, mute it, turn it off, and now you're not going to receive notifications about it. But you can still manually go and work with it, and you can still follow on the activity feed. Channel notifications. If you're in a channel and it's really busy and you're just getting a lot of stuff and it's distracting, go to the channel setting and you can change the settings there from email to feed, or you can mute the entire channel. You can also show and hide channels. If you hide a channel, you're going to minimize notifications coming from that channel, but you also can set your specific types of notifications coming from that channel. And then in the Teams client overall, if you go to your profile, top right-hand corner, you'll see notifications listed underneath settings. You can choose whether you do banner, email, or whether it only shows in the feed. Personally, I don't like the email option. I'm trying to get out of email. I don't want email. If I'm in Teams, I'll see my activity and I'll go through it. So I turn off email for a lot of stuff. I do like banners. I work on a Mac, and here's the one thing I don't like about banners. On my Mac, I set do not disturb when I'm doing presentations, and inevitably I get pop-up windows, little purple pop-up windows with notifications about activity in a meeting or something. That's a little bit of a personal gripe, but otherwise banners are nice because I can work with Teams in the background, and if I'm doing something else, somebody notifies me or mentions me, banner pops up and I can respond. You can set your global settings here, mentions, messages, and other. Definitely recommend you do that. So you have control, whether it's across all of Teams, whether it's a channel, a conversation, or a chat. You can mute, you can hide and minimize those notifications. And don't forget, you can set your do not disturb to give yourself some quiet time to concentrate. So with that, a couple last things. There's a few things about some studies related to working with some different teams and some of the efficiency in there. With that, I'm going to lastly mention Teams and Skype. This has been mentioned a couple of times, but soon you're going to have interoperability between Teams and Skype. So if you do have somebody still working in Skype, Teams will be able to chat with them. There's a timeline on the release of this. I know that's a big concern as people are kind of moving between the two tools. So there's a little bit of time. We're kind of at the time. I'm going to answer some questions and stick around for a few more minutes for that. I hope you found this helpful. I hope now you have an understanding of between chat, posts, and conversations, just trying to communicate with somebody. I hope this has been helpful. Let us know in the survey. Let us know in the feedback. My contact information was at the beginning of the presentation. Feel free to reach out to me. And with that, I'll take questions and we'll go from there. So thanks, everybody. This is a good one. Should the reply command be more visible so that it catches your eye now that the start a new conversation is more appealing? I think so. I think a little bit more visibility in that reply option would definitely be helpful. But sometimes it's just the nuance of the user interface that can kind of have that effect. Let me actually see. Oh no. This is one thing. I'm sharing my screen here. I'm going to see if I can show you an example. So like I've got conversations happening here. Sometimes the UI itself is its own enemy. So like I've got this conversation. I'm communicating with student number 4 here. And the message is kind of scrolled down a little bit and it's hiding the reply option. A lot of novice users don't really see that, and so they just click on start new conversation versus the reply, just because of the way that the threads scroll from top to bottom with the newest reply at the bottom. Sometimes that reply button is kind of hidden by the UI. There's not really much we can do about that, but just something to point out to your users. This is a good one. What are your thoughts on casual channel for non-work related subjects? I love it. I think it's great. A lot of us are working from home right now, and this is a new experience for us. We're missing that face-to-face interaction. We're missing that water cooler talk. We can't talk about our fantasy baseball team right now. We can't talk about, you know, what our kids did last night or soccer practice or whatever. I think having a casual channel is absolutely awesome. You can have a private chat that's casual, it's informal, it's fun, but I think having a channel for non work related topics is also an excellent idea, and that's something that I strongly recommend. One of my friends, Sarah, she posted on Twitter recently. She's like, hey, when you're working from home, have an informal, like, hey, how are you doing meeting, like first thing in the morning. Meet, collaborate with one another, say hi, say what's up. Talk about non-work related things so that you get that personal interaction with your team before you transition into the business world. Right now, a lot of my colleagues are doing just share pints and meetups. They're doing happy hours virtually. My buddies and I, we're doing meetups virtually throughout the day, just so we can stay connected, because most of us are in an office by ourselves staring at the wall or staring at the computer. So yeah, non-work related subjects, absolutely love it. Just, you know, keep it safe for work. Don't put your job in jeopardy. But I think that's great. And if you do it in a channel, it's inclusive. So anybody who's a member of the channel can join into the conversation and no one feels left out. And that's really, really good for everybody. Any other questions? All right. Well, I'm going to stick around for a while. If you have any other questions, feel free to send those my way. It was a pleasure being here today. Thank you so much, and stick around for the for my friend Matt. He's gonna knock your socks off. I know he's gonna do a great job. But thanks everybody.